I picked up the package room shift in new luxury building because my hours got cut and I needed steady checks. My role was scanning deliveries, logging guests, and babysitting the mailroom camera wall. My plan was to do 8 quiet hours, eat my lunch behind the desk, and leave before the morning rush. First night, I learned quiet in a place like that just means nobody is yelling. The lobby still buzzed, the elevators still whined, and residents still walked past me like I was a decorative plant that occasionally handed them boxes. It started normal. Boxes stacked crooked, tired couriers shoving phones in my face for signatures, residents acting annoyed that their own stuff existed. Then I noticed the timing. A woman, late 20s, maybe early 30s, always with the same beat-up tote, would come in after work, tap her fob, head to the elevators, and keep her eyes down like she didn't want anyone getting a good look at her. 10 or 15 minutes later, a guy I'd never seen before would show up. Clean jacket, calm face, soft voice. He moved like he belonged, like he'd already practiced the route from the front doors to the mailroom. He'd come up to my counter and say he was missing a delivery. Not his delivery, hers. He said her full name like it was nothing, like it was normal to drop someone's first and last in a lobby. First time I stayed professional. I asked if he was on the lease or authorized for pickup. He wasn't. I asked for ID. He had one, but it wasn't tied to any unit. So I told him no, I can't release packages or confirm anything. He didn't get loud. That was what felt off. Most people either explode or try to bully you. He just smiled, apologized for the confusion, asked if I could check anyway because sometimes the system glitches, then thanked me and walked out like we'd had a pleasant chat. Second time, same story, same full name, same polite smile. Third time, he didn't even bother pretending it was random. He showed up right after she did, but not right behind her like a movie creep. He didn't have to follow her. He showed up inside her safe spaces, the lobby, the gym turnstile, the mailroom. I'd see her enter on the camera wall, disappear into the elevator, and then I'd see him drift in later, pausing near the elevator bank like he was waiting for someone, then cutting toward the gym reader. One night, he tried the gym turnstile with a fob that wasn't ours. The reader flashed red. He didn't flinch, didn't curse, didn't look surprised. He just stood there for a beat and then wandered back to my desk, like the denial was part of his process. He asked if she'd already been down. He asked if she'd picked up the brown box. He asked if I could leave her a note. I told him to stop asking me about residents. He nodded like I made a reasonable point, then came back the next shift and did it again. By the fourth night, I started feeling it in my body before I even saw him. That hot crawl at the back of your neck when something's wrong and you can't prove it. I told the day concierge to watch for a non-resident using a resident's full name. She shrugged and hit me with, "We're not paid to be cops." I told the security supervisor. He gave me that exhausted look like I'd reported a ghost. He said if the guy wasn't causing trouble, don't escalate. Like stalking was only real if it came with shouting. I argued. I said the guy kept showing up after the same woman and kept fishing for her info. The supervisor told me to stick to packages and not create resident drama. That pissed me off. I told him straight, if something happens to her, you're gonna wish you'd taken 5 minutes to give a shit. He told me to watch my tone and reminded me they could replace me in a day. The guy kept upgrading his act. He'd mention brands. He'd mention colors. He'd say, "She's expecting it," like he knew her calendar. One time he leaned closer to the counter and said, "Lo, just tell her I was here." I felt my face go cold. I told him to get the fuck out of the building and stop coming back. He lifted his hands like I'd threatened him, smiled that calm smile, and walked away like he was the mature one. That's when I stopped thinking it was just a weird visitor and started thinking the building systems were helping him. The tablet we used was tied into the delivery app and the resident directory. It was supposed to be dumb, scan, log, notify. One slow night, I typed the first letter of her last name into the lookup field. Just one letter, and her unit number auto-filled instantly. Not a list, not suggestions, her exact unit. That shouldn't happen. Not for me. I cleared it and tried again. Same result. My hands actually started shaking. I pulled up the logs, because, yeah, I know I wasn't authorized, but I wasn't about to sit there and pretend the system predicting her unit like a shortcut was normal. I found a chain of service calls nobody requested. Fake pest control, fake maintenance, fake wellness checks. Each one created a paper trail. Each one touched her info, refreshed it, bumped it like someone kept pinging her record on purpose. The timestamps lined up too well with her building entries to be coincidence. I took photos of the screen with my phone, careful not to capture more than I had to, and I emailed management that night. I wrote it like a report, not a rant. Repeated unauthorized visitor using resident's full name, irregular directory behavior, potential misuse of service requests to access resident data. I expected them to at least look. Instead, they came after me. Next afternoon, the manager and the security supervisor pulled me into the tiny office by the loading dock. No thanks. No questions about the guy. The manager held my email like it was evidence and asked why I accessed resident info without cause. I said the cause out loud. I said the man was showing up after her and the system was auto-filling her unit and there were fake service calls tied to her record. The supervisor cut me off and said I wasn't authorized to investigate residents. The manager started talking about privacy and compliance like those words were a shield. I argued back. I said privacy doesn't mean ignoring an obvious stalking pattern inside your own fucking building. The manager said I was overstepping and creating liability. That phrase, creating liability, made me see red. Like the liability wasn't the guy, it was me noticing. Then he slid a write-up across the desk. Accessing resident info without cause. He wanted my signature. I said no. The supervisor leaned in and said, real quiet, sign it or we terminate you for insubordination. So I signed, because I needed the check, because I've got rent and a busted car and 0 rich parents. I walked back to my station feeling like I'd just been told to shut up forever. That night, I worked like a robot. Scan, log, shelve, pretend I wasn't angry. I watched the camera wall and waited for him. He came in, of course. He didn't even come to the counter at first. He wandered near the elevator bank and stood there, still, watching the mirrored doors like he could see through them. I stared back until my eyes hurt. He turned his head just enough to catch my gaze, and he smiled, small, like a private joke. Then he walked out. The rest of the shift dragged. Every time the package room door clicked, I jumped. I kept replaying the write-up in my head, and the way management acted like the problem was my eyes, not what they were seeing. When I finally left, I checked my rearview mirror the whole drive home. I sat in my car for a full minute before getting out, scanning the parking lot like an idiot, like a person could hide in plain sight just by acting calm. I slept like shit and came back the next day with that sour, wired feeling, already angry at myself for showing up. I slid into my chair, reached for the scanner, and felt my heel hit something. I looked down and saw a glossy gift bag tucked under my seat like it belonged there. The package room has cameras, but our angles are trash and management refused to adjust them because it ruins the look. I yanked the bag onto the counter and dumped it out. A cheap key fob slid out first, still in plastic. Blank, generic, the kind you buy online in bulk. Not one of ours. Then a folded piece of paper fell out. I opened it and my stomach dropped. It was a screenshot from one of those broker sites, my full name, my current address, a little map pin, and phone numbers that were supposed to be dead. Somebody had circled my address in thick red marker. No note, no explanation. Just that red circle like a fingerprint, like a reminder that if they could keep touching her data, they could touch mine too, and they did it the second I tried to stop them. I told management. They wrote me up for accessing resident info without cause. The next day, someone left a gift bag under my chair. Inside was a cheap key fob and a printed screenshot of my own address from a broker site, circled in red like a warning. I took a temporary code compliance contract in a small town because the city paid per inspection and I was broke enough to chase any overtime. My role was to document violations, take photos, and file reports that triggered fines. My plan was to grind for a month, clear my debts, and get back to a place where everyone didn't know everyone. The first week was easy money, busted gutters, junked cars, tall grass. I'd roll up, snap what I needed, stick the orange notice, log it, and move. No speeches, just numbers, photos, and a paycheck. Then I sighted a rental house owned by a family name everybody said like a prayer. I didn't know it was a family name. I saw a yard packed with junk and a couch turning into a rat hotel. The gutter hung like it wanted to fall on the sidewalk. Trash bags split open, black shit leaking into the grass. I did my normal routine: street sign, house number, violations, timestamp, upload. A tenant came out and tried to muscle me. He didn't swing, but he got close enough that I could smell beer. He kept insisting it wasn't his fault, that the landlord handles that, and he wanted my full name like he could bite it off my badge. I told him back up, and I kept shooting. He called me a bitch. I walked back to my car and filed it anyway. Within an hour, my supervisor called and told me to recheck the address. Not good job, not watch out, just that word, recheck. I asked what was wrong with it. He said the property was sensitive and I needed to confirm I didn't miskey anything. I told him I had street signs and a house number. He said real flat, just recheck. So I drove back and took a second set, even tighter. The yard looked the same. The couch still sat there. The fridge still lay on its side like a dead animal. I uploaded again from the office Wi-Fi, so nobody could blame my cell service. I watched the progress bar hit 100%. I saw the thumbnails appear in the case. After lunch, I opened the shared drive to attach one more angle, and the folder was empty. The case still existed, but the photos were gone. Not moved, not misfiled, gone like I'd imagined them. The activity log showed my upload, then nothing after it, like the system swallowed it and burped. I called the IT guy. He gave me that bored tone people use when they're already blaming you. He said it was probably user error. I told him I'd been doing this all week. He asked if I was sure I'd hit save. I said yes. He said he couldn't see anything on his end and he'd make a note. Then he hung up. That's when the town turned into a machine. My car got randomly pulled over twice a day. Morning, lights behind me before I'd even hit the main strip. Just checking a registration. Noon, a different cruiser, lane drift. Evening, your tag light looks dim. No tickets, just long waits and slow questions. Where are you staying? Who hired you? How long are you in town? One deputy held my contractor badge between two fingers like it was sticky and said it didn't look official. I asked if he wanted the city number. He smiled, said he'd call if he needed to, and kept me there anyway. He walked my license back slow, like he was counting seconds. At the office, my badge stopped opening the door. Red light. Again, red. I stood there yanking on a locked handle while people inside walked past and didn't look. I had to call the receptionist. She buzzed me in like I was a delivery guy, then slid a visitor sticker across the counter and told me to wear that for now. I asked who deactivated my badge. She shrugged without lifting her eyes and said it wasn't her problem. Anonymous complaints started landing in my file. Harassment, trespass, intimidation. They came in neat PDFs, typed language, like someone copied and pasted the same form and just swapped addresses. One said I threatened to fine a resident personally. Another said I took photos of children. Another said I kicked a fence. I hadn't done any of that. I barely talked to anyone. I confronted my supervisor. I dropped the printouts on his desk and told him I wasn't taking a fall for some local bullshit. He kept his voice calm, almost gentle, which made me want to flip his desk. He said I needed to adjust my approach. I said my approach was the ordinance and the photo evidence. He said I was creating friction. I asked with who. He didn't answer. He just told me to stop fixating on that rental house. 2 days later, I found one of my own reports printed and taped to my windshield, highlighted with a note in the margin, wrong town. I looked around the lot expecting a camera, a laugh, anything. Nothing. Next day, another report, different handwriting. We don't do that here. Then a blurry black and white photo of me, crouched near a downspout. My plates circled in pen. The note on that one just said, "Go home." I tried filing everything anyway. I saved copies on a thumb drive. I emailed myself PDFs. I started shooting short clips panning from street sign to house number to violation because I could feel the ground shifting and I needed proof that couldn't vanish with one click. Cases came back, missing attachments. Folders disappeared. I went to the courthouse on my lunch break to ask how a claim could be filed on a contractor without even verifying I was on that property. I stood at a little window under fluorescent lights while a clerk chewed gum and treated me like I was begging. She said she couldn't give legal advice. I said I wasn't asking for advice. I was asking for the record tied to my name. She slid a form toward me and told me to file it in writing. When I asked for the evidence, she said I could request it after a hearing, not before, and she shut the window. When I walked back to my car, a cruiser sat at the end of the lot with the engine running. Not lights, just there. I drove off, and it pulled out behind me and followed me all the way to the office, then turned off like it had just been in the area. I started taking weird routes after that, like a paranoid asshole. It stayed on me until I parked. That evening, my contractor portal locked me out for security review. Same password, same device. Suddenly, I was unauthorized. I called the company and got bounced between departments until someone told me they'd received serious concerns from the city. My pay for the week didn't hit on Friday. The following Monday, the motel ran my card and it declined. Not insufficient funds, just declined like a bank had thrown a switch. I had to dump my stuff into my trunk and find a cheaper place on the edge of town, and the manager there asked for a cash deposit like he already knew I was trouble. A week later, a deputy served me papers for property damage at a site I'd never visited. He walked up while I was loading gear into my trunk and said my name like we were friends. I opened the envelope right there. It had a case number, a date, and an address I didn't recognize. The complaint claimed I'd busted a fence panel and threatened the owner. I asked the deputy if he'd bothered to check my assignment list. He shrugged and said I could tell it to the judge. That night, I sat on the bed doing the math. If I stayed to fight it, I'd miss inspections. If I missed inspections, I'd lose pay. If I hired a lawyer, I'd lose everything I made here and then some. And I could feel it. This wasn't one claim. This was a factory. They could crank out paperwork faster than I could defend it. They didn't want me dead. They wanted me exhausted, broke, and quiet. I called my contractor company and demanded backup. The woman on the phone sounded like she'd had this conversation 100 times. She told me small towns get political and asked if I consider ending the contract early. I said, "So you're telling me to eat this?" She said I needed to de-escalate. I laughed sharp. I said, "I'm the one being pulled over 3 times a day." She said she'd note my concerns. Nothing changed. The next morning, I walked into my supervisor's office and told him if he wanted me to stop filing citations, he could say it out loud. He finally looked at me, and his eyes didn't have fear in them, just irritation. He said the town didn't need outsiders stirring shit. I told him the town hired me because it didn't trust itself. He said, "Not for that property." I asked why. He said, "Because you don't live here." Then he told me to hand him my badge at the end of the day. I didn't wait for the end of the day. I quit, packed, and left at 3 a.m. I didn't write a polite email. I didn't stop at the office. I threw my gear in the trunk, checked out without looking at the clerk, and took the back road to the highway so I wouldn't pass the courthouse. Every pair of headlights behind me made my throat tighten. I kept expecting lights, a siren, another random stop that turned into something worse. When I crossed the county line, nothing lifted. It didn't feel like escaping. It felt like stepping out of one room and realizing the building is bigger than you thought. I still get letters from their court with new dates, like the town has a hand on my ankle and keeps tightening. I started doing after-hours lockouts because my main job didn't cover rent. My role was simple: verify ID, get the door open, log the call, move on. My plan was to knock out 3 or 4 jobs a night, stay honest, and never get cute with exceptions. I said that like it was a rule carved in stone, But rules get soft when your bank app keeps screaming low balance and your landlord keeps just checking in. That night, I'd already done 2 calls, both harmless, and I told myself the third would be the last. Then dispatch sent me to a nice building with a code panel and a lobby camera, the kind of place that makes you feel loud just breathing. A guy met me outside, calm, hands out so I could see them. He held his phone up like evidence. A lease PDF and a selfie in the hallway with the unit door behind him, number and frame. He didn't look drunk or frantic. He looked prepared. He said he forgot his keys and his girlfriend was inside asleep. Then he started stacking details. Her full name, the unit, the dog's name, little things people only have when they've been close or when they've been watching. My gut tightened anyway. I asked for her to come confirm, just open the door, show her face, say yes. He shrugged and said she was mad and would ignore him, like I was supposed to relate. I didn't. I asked for his ID. He handed it over fast. Real card, real hologram, photo matched. The address didn't. Different street, same city. He watched my eyes hit it and didn't flinch. Haven't updated it yet, he said, like DMV delays were the villain here. I told him that didn't work for me and I couldn't open without the leaseholder confirming. He exhaled hard through his nose and looked up at the lobby camera like it was the referee. So you're just gonna leave me here? He said. He didn't raise his voice, but the temperature changed. He stepped closer, not threatening, just too close, and I felt myself get pinned between him and my own logo on the van. He said I was making it weird. He said a professional would just do the job. I told him my policy again, and he laughed once, short, like I was a child. Then he pulled out cash. Folded stack, clean bills. What if I make it worth your time? My phone buzzed in my pocket, and I didn't even need to check. I've been getting late notices all week, and every buzz felt like another finger poking the bruise. I argued with myself in silence while he stood there acting patient, like he was doing me a favor by waiting. I pictured driving away and losing the fee, then going home to an empty fridge and a rent payment that was already late. I picture my boss at my day, job, cutting my hours again, and telling me to be grateful. I pictured the overdraft fee hitting at 2 a.m. like it always does, right when you're trying to sleep. My gut kept saying no. My bank kept saying yes. I tried one last time to save myself from myself. I told him to call her and put it on speaker, wake her up, get her to say my name, anything. He made a show of tapping his phone, holding it to his ear, shaking his head like, see? No answer. She's sleeping, he said, or she's ignoring me. Either way, you're the only one making this hard. He offered more cash, and I felt my rule book slide on a slick counter. The lobby camera made me feel safer in a dumb way, like cameras stop bad people. I told myself if something fell off, I could bail the second the door opened. I told myself I'd be gone in 10 seconds. I told myself a lot of bullshit fast. So I opened the fucking door. Quick, clean, no damage. I picked it, turned the plug, and the latch clicked like it always does. Usually that sound means relief. That night it sounded like a mistake locking itself in. He slipped inside without rushing, without calling out to anyone, without that normal babe, I'm back noise. He didn't ask me to wait while he grabbed keys. He didn't invite me to see her. He just nodded once, like I delivered something, and he closed the door himself. I stood there in the hallway with my tools in my bag, feeling stupid, feeling dirty, still doing the motions like an idiot. Snap a photo of the door, mark the call complete, take the payment. I walked out past the lobby camera and felt it watching me do something I couldn't take back. I drove home and couldn't sleep. My brain kept replaying the dog's name like it was trying to cough up the warning I swallowed. 2 days later, a detective showed up at my day job. Not a phone call, not an email. He walked in like he already owned the room and asked my name like he was giving me one last chance to lie. He set my invoice on the counter, my company name, my license number, that building address. You did a lockout here? He asked. My throat went dry. I said yes. He showed me a photo of a bruised door frame that wasn't my work, strike plate bent, with splintered, screws ripped like someone tried to peel the door off the wall. He told me the guy forced it later and used my earlier entry as his proof he belonged there. Told neighbors he'd been locked out. Told them the locksmith already let him in once, so nobody called. My clean entry became a badge he wore. I'd stamped him legitimate. The detective didn't yell. That was worse. He asked questions that made every shortcut I'd taken feel louder. Did I speak to the leaseholder? No. Did the ID address match? No. Did I document the mismatch? No. Did I have a signed authorization from the tenant? No. Each no felt like stepping down into a colder room. I tried to explain the cash and the pressure and how normal the guy seemed, and it came out pathetic, like I was begging to be treated like a victim too. The detective just nodded like he'd heard the same excuse from 100 different helpers. He left, and I sat there staring at my hands, thinking about how easy it is to do the wrong thing quickly. The licensing board moved fast. Pending review, my license got suspended. They called it procedure. Procedure doesn't pay rent. I tried to pick up extra hours, and my boss acted like I'd brought a disease into the shop. We argued in the back room, low and sharp, him saying this is bad for business, me saying I didn't commit a crime, and him saying not my problem. I went home, and the internet had already found me. Someone posted my business name next to the victim's address, calling me a predator's helper. People said I should lose my license forever. People said I should lose my teeth. Someone spammed my reviews with 1-star ratings and wrote that I break into women's apartments. My phone filled with calls that were just breathing and hang-ups. I stopped answering unknown numbers and then missed the one call that mattered, my landlord. So he left a voicemail about starting the process. My card processor froze my payouts because of the complaints, so the little money I'd made that week sat in limbo while fees kept hitting my account. I watched my balance drop digit by digit like a slow execution. I argued with him too, like arguing fixes anything. I argued with my mom when she told me to just explain yourself online. Because what do you even say? That you opened a door for cash and then acted shocked when cash didn't protect you? It didn't stay online either. A guy left a note under my windshield wiper while I was inside a grocery store. Just my last name and the word helper like it was a brand. I started checking my mirrors on the way home. I changed routes. I parked under street lights. I slept with my work knife on the nightstand, even though I knew how stupid that was. I called the dispatch number that sent me the job and demanded the call recording, and they acted offended, like I was accusing them. The supervisor told me I should have followed policy. I told him I did, until I didn't. He said flat, "Then that's on you," and hung up. I drove to their office anyway and argued in the lobby until they threatened to call security. At the licensing hearing, they didn't care about my rent or my excuses. They cared about my log. They cared about the mismatch address I never wrote down. They cared that I didn't get the tenant on camera confirming. I walked out with my suspension still active and my stomach buzzing like I'd swallowed a hornet. The detective called once more and told me not to contact the victim directly, not through friends, not through social media, nothing. Like I needed a reminder that my help was poisoned now. I tried to do one thing that felt remotely decent. I wrote a statement for the case, not an apology post, not a performance, just facts. What he showed me, what he said, the dog's name, the calm, the cash, the time. I sent it through the case number because I wasn't about to hunt her down directly and make myself part of her nightmare again. I paid for certified mail and watched the tracking like it could fix anything. A week later, the envelope came back to my mailbox, still sealed, stamped return to sender. Under the stamp, someone had written in pen, "Too late."